He raised his glass under the chandeliers. The room hushed, waiting for his words.
Legacy, he said, voice heavy with pride, belongs to blood, not to men who married their way into the room. Laughter followed, sharp, cruel, echoing off crystal and marble. Forks paused in mid-air. Dozens of eyes turned toward me.
My wife lowered her gaze. She didn't move. She didn't say a word. I set my glass down. The sound was louder than the laughter. I folded my napkin, stood, and walked out. No defense, no protest, only silence.
Because sometimes silence cuts deeper than words.
That was the beginning of losing everything. The gala was supposed to be about achievement, awards, recognition, names carved into stone. But from the moment I entered, I felt like an intruder in my own life. The chandeliers glittered above the tables, set with silver and wine. An orchestra played softly near the back violins, weaving through the laughter of the wealthy. I walked beside Sophia, her perfume calm, familiar, her grip on my arm, just tight enough to remind me that I was being watched. We found our seats near the front. The head table, of course, belonged to her father, Dr. William Harrington, the man whose shadow stretched across every corridor of the hospital. He was smiling already, shaking hands, greeting donors as though the night existed only for him. And maybe it did. The screen behind him displayed names of surgeons, philanthropists, researchers. Mine appeared for a moment, a picture of me in scrubs bent over an operating table, eyes locked on a patient whose life balanced in my hands. A ripple of polite applause, not too loud, not too warm, the kind reserved for someone tolerated, not celebrated. Then Dr. Harrington stood at the podium. The crowd leaned in. He spoke of tradition, of legacy, of medicine as something inherited, not earned. And then came the knife. Of course, he said, every syllable dripping with charm. There are always exceptions. Young men who arrive with no pedigree, no family name, but a remarkable instinct for proximity. The laughter began as a murmur, then grew like a wave breaking over rocks. Glasses clinked, shoulders shook, and in the center of it all I sat frozen. Sophia's hand tightened on my sleeve. "Don't," she whispered. Her eyes pleaded wide, desperate. But she didn't stand. She didn't speak. I placed my glass down carefully, folded the napkin in my lap, and rose. The music swelled as though to cover me, but I felt every stare, every whisper, every smirk.
I walked through the mirrored hallway, my reflection broken into 100 fragments, each one smaller, weaker, less than the last.
Sophia hurried after me. "Please," she begged, voice sharp with fear, "just endure it. For me, for Anna, for the family." I stopped at the exit, the red glow of the sign washing over us. And for me, I asked quietly, "Who endures for me?" She had no answer, and I had no reason to wait. I pushed open the door. The night air hit like cold water, honest, brutal, clean. Behind me, applause rose again, a chorus for the man who had humiliated me. But I didn't look back, because dignity once broken is never found in someone else's room. The courthouse smelled like paper and old coffee. Everything was beige, flat, indifferent, as if the walls had seen too many endings to care about mine. We sat at a narrow table. A clerk slid the forms toward us. Her eyes didn't lift her hand, already reaching for the next file. Sophia signed first, quick, neat, without hesitation. Her pen hardly paused. I held mine longer, the weight of it pressing against my fingers, as if ink could measure the cost of a life.
I signed anyway. What else was there to do?
The clerk stamped the papers. The thud echoed in my chest, a dull hammer sealing the coffin of our marriage. Outside, the city didn't notice. People rushed by, talking into phones, buying hot dogs from a cart on the corner. The world moved as if nothing had changed. We stood on the courthouse steps, not as husband and wife, but as strangers bound by a child. "I'll pick Anna up Friday," she said. Her voice steady, rehearsed. 6 o'clock?
I nodded. 6 is fine.
We might as well have been dividing property, except the property was our daughter. We turned away at the same time, two shadows walking in opposite directions. That night I went back to the house one last time. The walls still carried her perfume. The piano still held the echo of Anna's practice. I packed in silence. A box of books, scrubs folded without care, a stethoscope coiled at the bottom like a question no one wanted to answer. On the kitchen counter sat a chipped mug. We bought it years ago in a cafe in Florence. She wanted to throw it out. I kept it anyway, because even cracked things can hold. I wrapped it in a shirt and placed it gently in the box. Anna found me in the hallway, her hair tangled, eyes wide. She clutched a paper crane she had folded, creases, uneven wings bent.
"Daddy, do you have to go?" Her voice broke.
I knelt. My hands shook as I touched her hair. "I'll never leave you, not really. I'll just live somewhere else." "Is that the same thing?" she whispered. Her lip trembled. Before I could answer, Alex appeared behind her. 16. Silent. His jaw tight, his shoulders stiff.
He didn't speak, didn't cry. He just stood there watching me pack my life into cardboard.
I reached out, half afraid he'd turn away, but he stepped forward, wrapped his arms around me in a quick, rough hug. Strong, fierce. Then he let go as if anything longer would shatter us both. I loaded the boxes into the car. Sophia stood on the porch. Her arms crossed her face, unreadable. She didn't say goodbye. I didn't either. Some endings collapse quietly like a building stripped of its foundation. The apartment was small, one window looking out at a brick wall. The radiator clanged like an old man coughing.
I stacked the boxes in the corner, set the chipped mug on the counter, taped the custody calendar to the fridge. Anna every other weekend, Alex every other week.
I stared at the calendar until the numbers blurred. It looked neat, orderly, like a business schedule. But families don't live on grids. They bleed through every line. I boiled water. Steam curled into the air, vanishing before it touched the ceiling. I sat on the mattress with the paper crane in my hand. Anna's small, clumsy folds pressed against my palm, and I wondered if anything so fragile could really last. The apartment was quiet. Not peaceful quiet, the kind that pressed on your chest until you couldn't breathe. I tried to keep working, tried to remind myself I was still a doctor, still someone worth trusting. But the phone didn't ring. Emails went unanswered. Appointments that had once filled my calendar vanished. The rumors spread faster than I could stop them. That I owed everything to the Harrington name. That without Sophia, without her father, I was nothing. Patients cancelled, investors withdrew, old colleagues crossed the street to avoid me. I sold the car first, then the office furniture, finally the lease itself. I carried the last box of files down the stairwell, my footsteps echoing off the concrete. No one stopped me. No one asked if I was okay. The street outside was loud with traffic, but somehow I'd never felt more invisible.
Nights were worse. I lay awake on the mattress, the radiator coughing in the corner, the paper crane perched on the nightstand beside the cracked mug. I closed my eyes and the dreams came. Operating rooms collapsing, beams cracking, ceilings giving way, patients calling my name as the floor split beneath us.
I woke drenched in sweat, heart-pounding hands trembling like I'd just stepped out of surgery, only there was no patient, no life saved, nothing at all. Sometimes I walked the city streets until dawn, past restaurants glowing with laughter, past towers shining like monuments to someone else's success, every window lit with lives I wasn't part of, every reflection in the glass reminding me that I had been cut out of my own story. One night I stopped at the hospital, stood outside the glass doors watching doctors in white coats hurry through the halls. Once that had been me. Now I was just a shadow on the sidewalk, too ashamed to go in. I saw Ben once, an old colleague, a man who used to trust me in the operating room. He looked at me for a long second before speaking. "David, you're a good doctor, but people are scared to stand near you. No one wants to cross Harrington." He clapped my shoulder, meant it kindly, but it felt like another door closing. The loneliness sharpened with every day. Anna's laughter came only through the phone now, her voice small as if she were afraid to be too happy in front of me.
Alex visited less. When he did, the silence between us was heavy as if he didn't know how to reach me anymore.
I couldn't blame him. I barely knew how to reach myself. There were nights I sat with the mug in my hand, steam rising from black coffee gone bitter. I stared too long at the city skyline, wondering what it would feel like to simply stop. But then I'd hear Anna's voice in my memory, or see Alex's eyes hard and silent but still searching for me, and that was enough to keep me breathing, barely. It was raining the night everything shifted. I was sitting at the desk, the paper crane under my hand, the radiator hissing like a warning. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps on the door, firm, urgent. For a moment I thought I imagined it. No one ever came. Not here. Not to me. But it came again. 3 knocks, steady, insistent. I opened the door, and there he was, Alex, soaked to the bone, rain dripping from his hair, his eyes burning with something fierce. Alex stood in the doorway, rainwater dripping from his hoodie, his sneakers squelching against the floor. I pulled him inside, grabbed a towel, but he pushed it away. His jaw was tight, his eyes sharp. For a moment we just stared at each other. The radiator hissed. The storm outside rattled the window. Finally he spoke. "Why'd you let him do it, Dad?" His voice cracked, but his eyes didn't waver. He meant Harrington. The gala. The humiliation. The silence. "I didn't want to fight in front of everyone," I said softly. "Your grandfather, he controls everything. I thought swallowing it was better than what Alex snapped. Better than standing up. Better than showing me you had a spine. You looked small, Dad. Smaller than I've ever seen you." The words cut deep, not because they were cruel, because they were true. I sank into the chair, hands covering my face. The shame burned again, worse than at the gala. When I looked up, he was pacing, his fists clenched, his voice shaking. "I don't care if you're rich. I don't care if you run a hospital or lose it all. I just want my dad back. The one who told me every brick matters. The one who said nothing stands without a foundation." Where did he go? He stopped pacing. His shoulders trembled, and then his voice dropped to a whisper. "I don't need Harrington. I don't need their name, their money, their empire. I just need you." The storm hammered the window, but inside the silence was heavier. I stared at my son, this boy who was suddenly a man, and felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not shame, something older, something stronger. I stood slowly and crossed the room. He flinched just slightly, but I laid my hands on his shoulders, firm, steady. "I'm sorry," I said. "I thought protecting you meant keeping my head down, but I see now, protecting you means standing up. Even if I lose, even if it hurts." His eyes glistened, but he didn't look away. And for the first time in months, maybe years, we really saw each other. We spent the night together, not talking about court dates or Harrington, not about divorce or money or failure, just us. We ate noodles, watched the rain streak down the glass, and shared a silence that felt different this time. Not heavy, not broken, simply present. At one point I laughed. It startled me hearing my own voice after so long. Alex laughed too, shaking his head. It was awkward, clumsy, but real. By dawn the storm had passed. The city glistened under pale light. Alex leaned against the window, eyes heavy with sleep. "I should go before Mom freaks out," he murmured. I nodded, though my chest ached at the thought of him leaving. He noticed and smirked. "Don't worry, Dad, I'll be back. You're not getting rid of me that easy." The door closed softly behind him. For the first time in a long time, the silence that followed didn't crush me. It held me like the first brick of something new. The morning after Alex left, I stood by the window watching the city shine clean after the storm. For months I had woken to darkness. That morning felt different. Not brighter, not easier, just possible. I started with the smallest thing, the dishes, stacks of plates crusted with food I had left for days. I filled the sink, rolled up my sleeves and scrubbed, one plate, then another. The water turned cloudy, but the counter cleared. It was ridiculous how washing dishes felt like laying bricks again, one on top of another, something solid, something mine. The next day, I opened the blinds. Let the sun hit the walls. I swept the floor, watched the dust rise in the light like smoke, leaving a fire. I bought a plant, cheap, fragile, half alive. I set it on the windowsill. Every morning I gave it water, as if saving it might save me too. When Anna visited, I tried to cook. The pancakes burned. Smoke filled the apartment. She laughed until her stomach hurt. Daddy's pancakes are funny shaped. She giggled, syrup dripping down her chin. Her laughter filled the walls. For the first time, the apartment felt like a home. Alex came more often. He would toss his bag in the corner, collapse on the couch, pretend he wasn't smiling. Sometimes we didn't talk much. We just watched old movies, shared chips from the same bag, sat together in a silence that no longer hurt.
One night he nudged me. You seem different. Different good or different bad, I asked.
He smirked. Different alive. The words stayed with me. Alive, not successful, not powerful, just alive. Work trickled back slowly. Not the big contracts, not the prestige. Small things, renovating a corner cafe, designing shelves for a bookstore. I met the cafe owner, a woman in her 60s with warm eyes. She said, "I don't need fancy. I just need a place that feels alive." I nodded, and for the first time in months my hands didn't shake when I drew. The lines came steady, confident. When the cafe reopened, she hugged me. "It feels like home," she whispered. And for the first time I believed I still had something to give. I began to walk again, through the park, along the river, down streets I once avoided. The city I had built for suddenly felt new. Children chasing kites, couples arguing then laughing, street musicians filling the air with broken songs.
Life went on, and I was part of it, even quietly, even slowly.
I wasn't healed, not yet. Nights were still hard, dreams still haunted me. But mornings had a reason now, a plant that needed water, a daughter who needed pancakes, a son who needed his dad.
Rebuilding didn't happen in a rush. It wasn't triumph, it wasn't glory. It was laying one brick a day, even when the mortar hadn't dried.
Step by step, breath by breath. I wasn't building towers anymore, not monuments, not legacies carved in stone. Something smaller, something humbler, something real.
A life.
It started with a knock, not urgent, not sharp, just 3 soft taps. I opened the door and there she was, Sophia. Her hair, tied back eyes, tired, a paper bag of groceries in her hands.
"I thought you might need these," she said. Her voice carried no judgment, only weariness.
I let her in. The apartment smelled of coffee and laundry detergent. The plant by the window had grown new leaves. Anna's drawings covered the fridge. She looked around slowly. "I've never seen you like this," she whispered. Calmer, different. We sat at the table. She pushed the bag aside. For a long time we just listened to the hum of the radiator. Finally she spoke. "My father's company, and it's collapsing." The words hung between us. The Harrington Empire, untouchable, unshakable, crumbling.
Investors gone, debt piling up. He cut corners too many times, David. Now the city knows, the press knows, he's finished. Her voice broke. Tears slid down her face. I thought siding with him meant safety. But I was wrong. I should have stood with you.
I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel revenge. I just felt tired, like watching a storm tear down a house I no longer lived in.
I wasn't perfect either, I said quietly. I let pride choke me. I thought silence was dignity. But to you, to the kids, it looked like surrender.
Her hand trembled on the table. I didn't reach for it, not yet. Days later, men from her father's office came to see me. They wanted my signature on a report. A project had skipped inspections. Unsafe walls, cheap materials. If I signed, it would stay hidden. If I refused, the city would shut it down. They promised me money, promised a way back into the fold. I looked at the paper. I looked at their faces, and I pushed it back across the table.
No, I said. I won't put my name on something that could kill families. I stand with the people walking under the building, not the man who owns it.
Their eyes hardened. They left without a word. That night, Sophia came again. She stood by the door, eyes searching mine. They said you refused, she whispered. I nodded. She exhaled a sound between relief and sorrow. You could have destroyed him, David, but you didn't. I shook my head. Revenge is just another form of ruin. I've seen enough ruin. Her eyes shimmered. She stepped closer. I forgot who you were, and now I remember.
Anna drew us all together the next day, 4 stick figures, a table between them. Above it she wrote one word in clumsy letters, home.
I taped it to the fridge, and for the first time I believed we might find our way there. It was a Sunday evening, the kind where the city slowed down streetlights, humming shadows, stretching long across the sidewalk. Anna sat at the table, legs swinging under her chair, colouring a picture with crayons. Alex leaned against the counter, pretending to scroll his phone, but watching me from the corner of his eye. The smell of soup filled the apartment. Not perfect, too much salt, but warm, real. Then the knock came, soft, familiar.
I opened the door. Sophia stood there, a bottle of wine in her hand, uncertain, but not cold. May I? She asked.
I nodded. She stepped inside, and for the first time in months, maybe years, it didn't feel like trespass. It felt right. We sat around the table, 4 plates, 4 spoons, no ceremony, no chandeliers, just us. Anna held up her drawing. 4 stick figures, a crooked table, smiles too big for their faces. See, she said proudly, this is us. Alex smirked, pushing the paper closer to me. She even gave you hair, Dad. Laughter broke around the table. Small, awkward, but it was laughter. We ate slowly, talked about school, talked about music, talked about nothing important, and somehow everything important. When the bowls were empty, I carried them to the sink. The water ran warm over my hands. I looked at the reflection in the glass of the window. A tired man. A cracked mug on the counter. But not broken. Not anymore. After dinner, Alex handed me a gift. A simple pen. Cheap plastic, but new. You needed a new one, he said. Can't keep signing things with the past. I turned it in my hand and felt a weight lift. The past didn't vanish, but it no longer owned me.
Anna crawled into my lap, her hair tickling my chin. She whispered, "Don't go away again, Daddy." "I won't," I said, and this time I believed myself.
The night settled around us. Outside, rain began to fall, gentle, steady. Inside, the table held. 4 people, not perfect, not fixed, but together. I didn't need towers. I didn't need legacies carved in stone.
I just needed this, a table, a meal, a family.
And as laughter rose again, I knew this was the only legacy worth leaving.